like that I remember in word for word. We spoke about life, her life, and mine, our goals, personal and otherwise, our emotional needs. And we discussed my favorite topic on earth. Make आंटी कर देना पूरा बाथरूम कर देना बहुत गंदा हो रखा है. Our conversation that night was like that I remember in word for word. We spoke about life, her life and mine, our goals, personal and otherwise, our emotional needs, and we discussed my favorite topic on earth, love. Love should make a breathless and weak. Love should allow one to tell the other person into love one's soul, with one's soul being a place with ease so within me that I would change forever when love touched it. Sometimes even today I hear her word as if she is whispering them to me in my ears. I knew that I could move mountain for her if she would love me back. That was the first time she sang for me on my instant of instead of course. तुम पकड़ लो, a song from a old Hindi movie. Khamoshi. Her voice gave me goosebumps and the recollection of that. When she asked me to tell her something about me that no one else knows, I confessed to her that I loved photography and was planning to buy a professional DSLR camera. I told her that she had been my muse for the last 3 years and promised to send me a copy of images that I had taken of her as we landed in India. At 3 a.m. realized that she was had gone off to sleep or she stopped talking. I disconnected the call and slipped under my seats, smiling like an idiot. The next day, our team had plans to go out the Great Ocean Road. It was the last weekend before we went back home, and I was excited beyond words. When I woke up the next morning, I was not feeling very well. Rajbir checked my temperature, which was slightly higher than normal, and I had a runny nose. We should cancel the outing. Adira suggested when the rest of the team walked into the room to see how I was doing. I do not know how bad I actually looked, but judging my by the look on everyone's faces, I think I looked worse than I felt that day. But why? Angad asked, surprising everyone. He looked at all the other in the room with his hand in the air. He was presently not happy to miss out on his fun because of messy looking colleagues who was sick. Angad is right. We should all go. This is our last chance to go out together as a team in Australia. Rajbir was not too kind either, but I do not blame either of them as I would have reacted exactly the same why had Angad been down with a fever. I wish that Angad gets the flu soon. I slyly prayed. Will you be able Our last chance to go, but I do not blame either of them, as I could have reacted exactly the same. Why had Angad been down with a fever? I wish that Angad gets the flu soon. I slyly prayed. Will you be able to manage alone? Adira asked, looking concerned, and I nodded just to make her happy. Internally, I was dying and wanted someone to be by my side just in case. And I managed to say as the team walked out. Both Adira and Angad turned around to give me a look before heading out. I was alone and unwell. To add to my misery, Angad walked back in again. This time he was alone. I think she is not your type and you should step back, he said, almost aggressively between clenched teeth. His eyes were cold, and if he were tre- threatening me, wait, he is threatening me. What? I attempt to get up from my bed but fail. I seem to be really weak. My reaction, which are usually quite slow, were the slowest they had ever been. Do not think you are fooling me. I know what you have been trying to do for the last few days. I can see what you feel for her. But trust me, she was no feelings for you or anyone for that matter. At this moment, she is a good friend of mine. I have known her for months now, and I can tell you that she is not very comfortable with your attempt to be all over her. So back off. There was a seven warning in his tone. I could see that he was trying to mess things up. Really, I faked a laugh and ended up shouting like a old man. I had I have known her for far from years and more months than you have. She is a grown up girl who can speak her mind. If she has a problem with me or in being with me, she is very capable of telling me herself. You don't need to speak for her. I growled at him thanks to my short throat, and before the unnecessary argument became more heated, I dunked my face under the duet. There is no point washing your time on a conversation with a archhole like him, I told myself. My head was hurting as if it was going to burst with all the anger and rage in me. And to add to all that, there was this bloody Australian flu. Someone eyes always knew that Angat was trouble. I had never been in a situation like this before, fighting over a girl with a man. I think I should talk to Adira and tell her to put her friend in space. I decided and dilated her number after a heard Angad stomp out of my room without closing the door behind him. Surprisingly, Angad picked up my call. What the words evaded me, and he did not take long to say, I told you not to bother her. I decided to lie down and take a nap as I felt exhausted after the unwanted war of words. Later, I lay in bed looking at the white calling above my head, the fever, as well as Angad's words had. Angad's words had hit me hard. It is evident that she doesn't want you to bother her. She did not even pick up your call. That was true, but it was also true that he had We had had such a fantastic time together. We had such nice conversation, and she trusted me enough to tell me about her parents. Even that morning, when she spoke to me, she sounded so concerned. It was not adding up. It everything was actually as good as I thought. Then why had she not taken my call? Why did she allow Angad to talk to me? My own thoughts and Angad's words keep rushing thoughts my brain. I recall waking up a few times with disturbing thoughts about Adira and Angad in my head. Adira will enjoy her day in my absence with Angad. I was being a melodramatic as if I was the film actress. I was the good guy in our love story, but failed miserably when a surge of anger filled my heart. No thoughts, rational or otherwise, come to me. I was thoughtless and blank for the first time in ages. I could think of nothing, and soon I drifted into the words of nightmares. When I woke up, I was feeling much better. Physically, the fever was gone. I could tell that without the aid of a thermometer, I felt lighter in the head as the throbbing pain was gone. Even thought my nose was still blocked and my throat hurt as if someone had moved it using a teeny lawn mower. I adjusted my pillow to sit up and did what anyone does once they wake up. I aimlessly scrolled on my phone. It was not connected to the hotel Wi Fi, so I had nothing new to look at. I plugged my phone into free data and went into the two while inside. When I come back to my surprise, there was a few WhatsApp calls as well as message on the phone, mostly from Adira and Rajvi. I responded to Rajbir's message to let him know that I was feeling much better and was happy that they were enjoying their trip. Adira too had asked me if I was okay, but I chose to ignore her courtesy stacks after my heated conversation with Angad last evening. I needed time to figure out where he was all going, and honestly, I had entirely convinced myself that she was toying with my heart and feeling. My ego, which I believed I termed as my self respect, then raised its ugly head from under all the love that I had for her and ruled my actions. More than Angad, I was angry and upset with Adira. She had made me believe that she felt something for me. We were friends, and she could have told me directly if she was not interested. I never crossed my limits. Who is Angad? Why had she involved him? I recall saying such things to myself all day while analyzing and over analyzing the situation. The rational me should have just waited for them to return and talk to Adira about what had happened between Angad and me. But the rational me was not well, and the new me was high on ego, the worst of human emotions. I decided to overthink and make matter worse. I was only instead in shutting her out of my life and forgetting the last 3 years of my life, which I had mostly spent thinking about Adira. It is never easy to forget the first love of our life, every, even if it is a one sided love affair. All the memories come back to haunt you. all night, every night, but I had to try no matter how difficult it was. This was the beginning of a new phase in my life, the worst period in a way. I slept in all day on Sunday as well, despite feeling much better. I had neither the company nor the will to go out and explore or enjoy my last day in Australia. I packed my bag and ate all three meals in the hotel room, watching old Hindi movies on Netflix and crying. I'm not someone who cries at drop of a hat, but that Sunday was one of my few weekdays. I felt alone and very lonely. I called my parents who were attending a family wedding, and the feeling of being ignored by them made matters worse. My sister was somewhere at a doctor's clinic in London and was too busy to take my call. She was not unwell, as my mother later told me. She just had to visit a doctor that day for a regular checkup. Finally, at around 9 p.m., the group returned from their second outing. It was still quite bright outside, as is Melbourne. The sun set around 10 p.m. in the summer. I heard their happy banter and laughter through the walls of the corridor and felt sick in the stomach again. I could hear Uncle's voice followed by Adira's laughter. The night brought more tears to my eyes. For some unknown reason, I felt that I shouldn't see Adira ever again. She had said nothing to me and had done nothing wrong at all. In fact, she had been the nicest to me in the last few days. Things were exactly as I wanted them to be. It was Angad who had planted the seeds of jealousy and made me feel betrayed. The feeling was not going to let go of me so quietly or easily. We had a early morning flight at say 7 a.m. the next day. Cry all you want tonight, as tomorrow will be a new day. I promised myself and covered my face with my double the moment I heard Rajbir's footsteps inside the apartment. My luggage was tucked in the living area. Rajbir called out my name a few times. When I didn't respond, he gave up and started packing his own bags. Half an hour later, all the commotions died down, and the only noise that remained was Rajbir's soft snores. My home, New Delhi, 3 days later. I had finally completely recovered from the flu and was to join work for the next Wednesday. That gave me a few more days to relax. But typically, I utilized the next few days in overthinking and ensuring that my mind did not go back to its normal rational state. Physically, I was much better than when I left Melbourne, but mentally, I think I was at the lowest I had ever been in my life. My uneasiness did not go unnoticed. Even thought I wanted it to. My mother, who liked all the other mothers in the world, was heavy-eyed vision, figured out that sometimes was extremely wrong, but couldn't put her finger on is exactly what was troubling her child. She had been worried about me even since I'd come back home and had been trying. She had been worried about me even since I'd come back home and had been trying to guess the reason, primarily focusing on fools of all kind knows to men. You have come back with some foreign flu. which is not going away. You must get yourself. You have come back with some foreign flu which is not going away. You must get yourself checked for swine flu as well as bird flu. I have asked your papa to check with Dr. Mehra if it could be Ebola. My melodramatic mother said with tears in her eyes. That was the moment I figured out where I'd got my overthinking, my over worrying nature from. It was all in the gens. Relax, mummy, it is nothing. Moreover, I feel much better today compared to the first day in Melbourne. All I have know it is bit of cold. It will go on its own it, in a few days' time. I tried my best to reassure her, but she was not the type of be easily convinced. Thankfully, she had not discovered Dr. Google then, or she would have declared that I had cancer of some kind of sure. I had last seen Adira at the Indira Gandhi International Airport where our flight had landed 3 days ago, thankfully. Thankfully, I was giving a seat next to a stranger on the long, exhausting 16 hours flight. I was glad to have some comparatively warm Indian food, which the flight attendants on our Air India flight served smilingly despite being unwell as well. Uh, Heartbroken. I was delighted and received to be going back to my people, my country, my home. I slept thought most of the flight as there was no point in hurting myself looking at Adira and Angad sitting close together in the seat opposite mine, watching movies and laughing. My only interaction with Adira throughout that day was when we had first entered the airport. She asked me why I had not replied to any of her calls or texts the day before. I was and am unwell. I told her without looking at her. Come, Adira, I heard Angad call her, and she walked away from me. From her expression, it was evident that she was hurt with the way I responded to her. But I was protecting myself and my heart. I saw her go and joined her friends, and I closed my eyes to hide my pain as strengthened my resolve. I had to get over her. It was unlike me, but my thoughts didn't take a break even on the flight. I recall how the last few days had brought us together in a inexplicable way. I saw it as the beginning of love, but it was most definitely not the way Adira saw it. That was what I believed when then. We had decided the she looked at me purely as a friend. All the wanted was friendship, and all she was ready to give was friendship. When she spoke to me openly about her feelings, when she held my hand in the cab, when she placed her hand on my shoulder, I had started building my dreams castle slowly and stably, while for her these were clearly only friendly gestures. I had wanted more, but she had placed me in her friend bucket. I was trying in that work, struggling to get out and attract her. attention. I was trying to get annoyingly close to her. I felt I had been ignoring my mother's place and avoiding meeting anyone. But it was about time I came out of my self-created gloom. So I agreed and saw my mother's spirits lift. She had some plans for me. I surprised, as she put it. I almost knew I was in for a shock later that evening. Most of what happened that day is a blur in my memory. Maybe because nothing significant had happened in my life. Since my brawl with Angad in the evening, I accompanied my mother and met a lot of my cousin and distant relatives. There was a lot of noise, chaos, and irritatingly happy vibes at the Sangeet ceremony. Everyone was happy about someone else getting married, and I was probably unhappy because they were not focusing on me. In a Punjabi family, a relative who has returned from abroad in the center of attention. All thought things are changing a little now as more and more people travel internationally, courtesy of their companies. Families now regard the ones who are at the companies either permanently settled abroad or are there for their studies as more important. Foreign returns likely were plentiful in all families, and we were considered second class citizens compared to our NRI relatives. At this point, I think it is important for me to recount what happened earlier that evening. We are a big family, and more than a few of my cousins, including both close and distant ones, get married every year. Around the time when the marriage season is a full swing, we hardly ever stay at home. Any evening there is always a function to attend, white dead, and I need only a few minutes to get dressed. Mummy begin her ritual in the afternoon for evening get together. My dad and I never disturb her, and I assumed that the same protocol would be followed that evening too. But to my surprise, my mother spent most of her time that evening in my room, selecting and rejecting clothes for her to wear for the functions. I do not like anyone cares about what I wear. Mummy, I only go to parties to stuffle myself with good food. I told her shamelessly, grinning at my own joke for the first time in many days. Here, try this combination. She handed me a wild shirt, being trouser, and a black jacket. I looked the clothes from her and went into the bathroom to change. I could not help but overhear my mother talking to someone on the phone while I was getting dressed. Yes, he is. He just returned from Australia. I heard her say, bragging to someone over the phone. Oh, how much I love my mother. She was so proud of me while we were at home, but her mood changed as soon as we entered the wedding venue and were greeted by the laughter coming from the and where my NRI cousin was playing a flute. I should have worn my black trousers with this blazer. I told my mother, trying to take her mind off the unnecessary stress she felt as my cousin basked in the limelight. No, you look just fine, Mummy replied without taking her eyes off the group standing around the NRI, admiring the funny tune he played. However, it did not take long for her to come out of her sad state. Soon her kitty party group was bored, and all of them gathered together to discuss the important stuff. But not before issuing her instruction to me. Be around and answer your phone when I call you. She told me, and I nodded my head before leaving her with the group. After wandering around for a few minutes, I parked myself close to the dance floor. In the middle of the closed banquet hall, very loud music played. I was thankful that I was unable to hear anything or anyone. It was the perfect place for me to stand and watch as people sometimes to reflect upon what had happened those last few days in Australia. I could see that I was probably overreacting. Angad could just be a jealous friend who wanted me to stay away from Madeira. And he had planned it all this in my head. With my help, of course. Maybe Adira had nothing to do with any of this. The more I thought about it, the more I saw things in a different light. I one jealous moment when Angad said something. All it took was a few words to forget all that Adira and you had built. I wondered why I always wanted to be with her, even when she didn't know my name and know when there was a chance. I had blocked her own of my life. Maybe it was fear of some sort. Maybe I thought that she was too good for me and that was not perfect for her. Probably I was worried about losing her before I'd even had the chance to get her.